Welcome to the Money Watch Show. It's Saturday, October 18th, and we are here trying to walk you through whatever is going on in your financial life. If you've got a question and maybe you're thinking that you want to make some sort of action and you want to do something and you're not sure, get in touch with us. We can help you out. Both Mark and I, my co-host Mark, who I'll introduce in a second, are certified financial planners. There he is, Mark Talercio, executive producer, certified financial planner. Hello.
Hello, Jill.
Are you excited? This is one of our favorite topics because so often when people are getting in touch with us, especially the young folks on this program, they're freaking out about the fact that it's really hard to buy a house. It is. It's hard, no doubt. And sometimes you can just be unlucky on timing. But today we are going to talk you through how to buy a house, the steps you need to take in order to do this. So I think that what we should do, Mark, is we'll play the segment that I did on CBS Mornings. The anchors are Tony DeCopel and Adriana Diaz. And on the other side of it, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that renting can do in order to push your financial future ahead. I think a lot of people get nervous and they feel like, oh my God, if I don't buy a house, then I will not be part of the American dream. And maybe not. So let's make sure that you have a diligent way to approach this idea of buying a house. And so here is the segment on the other side of it. Mark and I are going to talk more about the housing market. Here is a segment on CBS Mornings, How to Buy a House.
From finding the right deal to the right real estate agent, getting a mortgage can be difficult. There's a whole lot that goes into it. Where do you start? We have someone who knows a thing or two or a million things about all this. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger here with the step-by-step instructions to take the hassle out of the hunt.
Let's
Jill,
go.
What do we got?
Let's start with you got to run the numbers because housing is so expensive, and it's not just the cost of the house or the high mortgage interest rate. It's the maintenance of the house, 1% to 3% of the purchase price every year. It's the homeowner's insurance, which has gotten very expensive. It's taxes. You run your numbers. Now, the interesting thing about this, there used to be old rules of thumb. When I first got into the financial planning business about 100 years ago, we would say, okay, 28% of your gross income, that's all you can spend on your housing costs, or 36% of all of your payments should be debts, anything less, right? Throw it out the window. It can't work anymore based on where housing prices are. I would ask a more simple and direct question. If I buy this house, will I be able to live my life and do the things I want to do? And will I be able to contribute to my retirement plan and to my kids' college funds? Those are big questions.
Where do people even start? I mean, in terms of the mortgage process, and is now even a good time considering where interest rates are?
Well, they've come down, and just because mortgage rates are higher than they were, say, 3 years ago, doesn't mean you can't buy a house. But I think it's a good idea to go through the process and learn, hey, what could I qualify for? This is an important part of the process because you may be able to qualify for a large mortgage, but again, that would mean that you can't do anything else fun in your life. So you have to use your brain when you're going through the process. And also you have to say, how much money can I actually put down on this house? What can I afford? And there's a real important differential between getting pre-approved and pre-qualified, okay? So approval means you're set to go. You've got a bid in hand and you've got someone from a mortgage company say, we'll lend you this much money. Pre-qualified's yeah, we think you're a pretty good bet. This is about what you can afford. So approval better than qualification.
Gail always talks about when she first was looking to buy a home, she could afford the monthly, but was down payment. What are you talking about? You need all this cash up front.
Yeah.
That's hard for people.
It is very hard. And what I encourage people to do is if you're talking, especially to your parents, an oldster like me, will say, oh, put 20% down. But if you look at that right now, if that you have to put 20% down, it's almost $90,000 for the median home to put 20% down right now. Very few people can do that. Let's look at 10% down, and then let's start to talk to different mortgage lenders. You should talk to a variety of them. Don't just go to your bank. Don't just go to one organization. Compare them. And if you actually can put 10% down and afford the payment and be on track, that's okay. Let's say you can't put that 10% down. Would you borrow from your parents? I'm going to ask each of you. Would you borrow from your parents?
My mom doesn't have it.
Yeah, but if they had it.
I guess. I don't know.
Would you?
No comment.
No comment. Okay. So I have an expansive thought around this. I used to be like, oh my God, why are you giving your kids this money for the down payment? A lot of people can afford it. Okay. But the bigger issue is if I give money for my kid's down payment, right? What am I doing to the other kid? Am I doing the exact same thing? Is it equal?
Oh, you got to.
Well, but maybe you don't. And I just think that this is one of those cases where I say we have to have conversations and we should put it down on paper. If you're going to ask your parents for money, by the way, they're in your lives, so hello, that's an issue. But if you're the parent, you say, let's put this down on paper. Is this a loan? Or is this a gift? Am I doing this for you or am I doing it for all the siblings? If I'm not doing it for all the siblings, you better tell them. And maybe they don't need it.
They're not going to tell them, Jill.
Yeah, you have to, because I'm going to tell you, it's going to come out. If you know, we're coming up into the holiday season. What you don't want is to have a holiday meal explode over how dare you gave her the money for the down payment. You didn't give it to me. Come on.
I agree.
We need a whole Jill on Money podcast episode, or maybe there is one on the family dynamics of parents giving money to kids.
Sometimes there are benefits to being broke as a parent because it's like, look, I don't have it. For all of you, the answer is zero.
Yeah, but so many parents are like, this is what I work for.
Yeah, well, and a lot of parents have a very difficult time saying they could afford it, but their kids can't. Yeah. And I think that's a real issue, which is I want to give you the opportunity. And because housing costs have exploded and because mortgage rates are high and because the cost of everything is high, the idea here is that it is okay to rent. I want to be crystal clear about this. Renting is flexibility. You want to take a job across the country. You're not tethered to a house. And oh, by the way, even if you're older and you want to sell your house and rent for a while, there's nothing wrong with that. It gives you access to your money in a way that owning a home doesn't. So I think renting is great, says a person who hasn't rented in a while. But I have to say it gives you so much more opportunities as you consider your financial path. And by the way, if you rent and you're taking all that money that would have gone to the down payment
and investing
it and using that money that you're saving on these housing costs and you're putting it into your 401k, this is a great wealth accumulation vehicle. Renting can be great.
Okay, so Mark, as you know, I am a huge fan of renting, which is funny because I own 2 dwellings. But what people need to really understand is if you are not buying a home, there are a lot of ways that you are able to accumulate wealth. And I think people forget about that. So it's not just the cost of carrying a house. What about that whole down payment, that $44,000 or $88,000 chunk of money that it costs to buy the median house in the United States right now? If you had that money and you invested that and you had access to it, that gives you a lot of options. So I think the key is to invest the money that you're not sinking into a house. And also, I worry sometimes, Mark, that people will be buying homes and then they're locked in. They literally have no lives because all they have is a house. And that's a dangerous situation to be in as well, right?
That's no fun. I mean, that's why you got to run the numbers. Like we always talk about that. You got to run the numbers, see if you can continue to live your pre-house lifestyle with your post-house lifestyle. If nothing changes, then as you mentioned in the piece, then that's a good sign. If something's going to change drastically, then you're overextending yourselves and you probably shouldn't do it.
Now, if you are in the house buying process, I also think that you really have to have a lot of patience. So when I got off the air, a couple of people came up to me and asked me pointed questions. It did not make it to air. So, Mark, how do you think people should actually look at real estate agents? It's a little overwhelming. I know that a lot of people do this on their own. I think it's easier to do it with a real estate agent. I think that even though the process has changed since that big lawsuit was settled, I still think a realtor is important. So how did you choose your realtor?
We found ours through a friend, and in turn, we've become friends with our realtor. We've used them now for, I think, 4 separate transactions. In fact, we're going to their Halloween party later this month. So yeah, it's turned into a nice relationship, but it's something I would never even think about doing on my own. Not in New York anyway.
Well, I think in many places. I think you have to be careful about the type of person you choose. And by the way, realtors out there, I'm happy to talk to you about this as well, because I think realtors should be a lot choosier about the clients they're seeking to engage. Because I think that sometimes clients are completely in la la land. Like they're like, I will only list for this price, or I will only choose the agent based on who's giving me the highest listing price. That seems crazy. You want someone who knows your market, okay? You want someone who has served clients like you. You know, if someone is very much catering to like these high-end people and you're just getting started, even if they like help someone out that you know, I don't think that makes sense. You want to interview a few agents. You want to ask about their experience in the target neighborhoods that you're thinking about. You want to make sure that they understand your needs and maybe more importantly, your budget. And I think that what you also have to recognize is that this is a relationship where, you know, they can't just show you everything that's like in your price range. It's like you really need to talk through and filter it out. Otherwise, you're going to be house hunting for like ever and ever and ever. I mean, I don't know how many places you looked at, Mark, but you were very dialed in on what you wanted. Okay. And I think the sooner you can get that, the better. So that you're not wasting your time looking all over the place, right?
Oh, yeah. We were very particular. We knew exactly, I mean, down to the blocks. At one point, you know, they were showing us places that were kind of outside what we had told them. And I'm like, let's not waste your time. Let's not waste our time. We want to be in this very specific range because I knew I was going to be schlepping Theo to school on the subway. We knew exactly where we wanted to be. And it made it very simple.
And I think that it's important that you avoid, even if you're looking for a long time, you cannot fall in love with a house so much that you ignore red flags. You know, I had friends who were signed a contract for a long time and they could not get to closing. It was a new house. And they're like, well, we want to close in escrow, meaning we want to close, hold the money, this and the other thing. And the lawyer's like, no, we're not closing. There's no certificate of occupancy. Of course, my friends were like, oh, we're going to lose the house. And the lawyer's like, oh, no. We are not closing without a certificate of occupancy. We have a signed contract. They have to deliver that. They can't go to someone else. They can try to like shake you down and make you feel bad or whatever. Does not matter. You cannot ignore a red flag. To me, that's a red flag. By the way, they got the certificate of occupancy. It was all fine. They closed. You also want to make sure that you don't go so crazy that you're so flabbergasted that you blow through your budget. I know it's frustrating, but there's more and more inventory out there. Patience is going to be good. And I don't like waiving contingencies. There are a lot of risks in doing that. I think you should always hire a qualified home inspector. You know, my brother-in-law is a civil engineer. He identified things in every single house that like he's looked at for, you know, for us, for family members. He has always identified things that an inspector, a home inspector, didn't identify. It doesn't mean that you're going to blow up the deal, but don't you want to identify the issue? You know? And so to me, the process of buying a home has to be methodical. I know that it is expensive, but I also know that there's no need for you to reach beyond what you can really afford. And if you can just kind of hunker down, if you run the numbers, if you be patient, I think there's going to be more and more inventory coming on. And I do think that for a lot of people, you're going to find that, you know, at some point buying a house is going to work for you. If it's not now, it may be sometime soon. It may be that you change what your parameters are. You may say, you know, maybe like Mark, I absolutely will only be in this neighborhood. And I did try to convince him to move to my neighborhood. Believe me, I tried. But, you know, you were very clear about that. So if you are clear about that and you're willing to be patient, then great, fine. But I think it's important for you to really stick to your guns. And the other question that someone asked me was, do realtors lie? And I said, well, my mother was a realtor. And so I can't answer that.
White lies.
I think there's often a sin of omission. That's what I think happens. I don't think that it's usually an outright lie, but I also think that it's great to work with someone like my mother, who is famous for saying, that's not a house for you. Like my father would say to her, you know, Susan, you're supposed to actually sell a house. She's like, no, it wasn't the right house for them. That's how you know you're working with someone great, who's willing to be like, that's not a house for you. We're not doing this. it's important that you listen to that expertise. Someone who's honest like that is worth a lot. All right, that's it. That is the program. Are you on the house hunting journey? If you need some guidance, if you need some assistance, if you want to know whether you should do this adjustable rate mortgage, whether you should put down 10%, 20%, if there are parts of the process that you are just flummoxed by, get in touch with us. Go to JillOnMoney.com, click the Contact Us button, write us a note. And of course, if you'd like to join us live, that's the most fun. Mark will do everything else. You can subscribe to us on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. If you would not mind, please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen. Mark Talercio is the co-host, executive producer, and king of all things web at the JillOnMoney.com website. We are distributed by Paramount Skydance. We drop our episodes on Saturdays and Sundays. Try to do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.